What's up YouTube, Mellow and Matt here. So we are back for week 2 of the Lyrical early lists, and as you might be able to tell from the game that we had on Monday, we are going to be covering Luticia and Hazeritt. But on top of that, we are also going to be covering Fortia, because Fortia got a nice couple of upgrades. So, like with last time where we did new deck, old deck, new deck, we are going to follow that same pattern again. And we're going to start off with one of the more hyped up ride lines from this set in Luticia. So Luticia herself is all about the playing of these orders called cursed plays. And she gains additional skills based on the cursed plays in your soul. Because Luticia's got the Luticia's skills are, when you play a normal order this turn, this unit gains 5,000 power to end a turn. And then her second skill is when she attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, and then based on the number of cursed plays in your soul, you do the following effects. If you've got 2 or more, you can draw a card, and this unit gets 5,000 power to end the turn. But if you have 4 or more in there, end the battle, you can discard a card from your hand to stand this unit, and it gets drive -1. So, restanding Vanguard's very nice. 3 drive checks, and you're drawing the card before you discard, so it's ±0 for the restand, which is really nice. But then you're thinking, how do you get the cursed plays into soul? Well, we'll start off with covering the cursed plays, because I do want to cover those too, because obviously it's the key part of the deck. And the first one up is the Cursed Sugar Sparkle. And this has got the skill of, if you have Vanguard with Luticia in its card name, you can play this card. Put this card into your soul and then soul charge 1. You then choose up to 1 card from your soul with your Vanguard's grade or lower and call it to rearguard circle. And that unit gets 5,000 power to end a turn. So obviously this is really nice for the fact of A, it generates soul, which this is actually quite a soul based deck, so having that extra bit of soul charge is nice. But you're then going to get to move a combo piece from your soul back out your soul onto the footboard to save you actually committing cards from hand to rearguard circle, which is really interesting. Plus you can combine it with other cards that have got on play skills that don't have to be from hand to carry on the combos and plussing. Then we've got another cursed order, which is a dazzling Anshensma Bitter Twinkle. And this one is actually a blitz order, and it's got skill obviously. You can only play this card if you've got a Vanguard with Luticia in its card name. You then put this unit into your soul, then choose one of your units, and during that battle, it gets 15,000 power to end that battle. And then if you have 4 or more cursed plays in your soul, you then draw a card. So obviously it replaces itself if you've got 3 others in your soul as you play this, because obviously you put this into soul first before counting, so it does count itself towards it. And having it become an extra 15k shield in the deck is very solid. So obviously, cursed plays moving themselves to soul does help out. You can technically turbo to have that 4 in soul by the time you reach grade 3, but I've personally found that you actually want to tempo the deck quite nicely. So I'm going to pop up a nice example list right over here. As you can see from here, we have got a few other cards we haven't quite mentioned yet. First one up being the grade 2 Overflow Happiness Notoria, and she's got the skill of when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you've got Luticia Vanguard, you look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose 1 from among them, put it into your soul, and then you put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. And then when she attacks, if the number of cursed plays in your soul is 2 or more, she gets 5,000 power. Then if you have 4 in there, it becomes 15,000 instead of the 5,000. So another way to help obviously manipulate your soul, this one's actually more specific soul charge, because you're getting to check top 3 and then put one of those 3 to your soul. So you're choosing whether you've got either cursed play or a piece you want to call off your non-blitz order, so you can actually combo off quite nicely. And then also becoming a 25k attacker on her own if you've got the 4 cursed plays, 15k if you haven't. Really nice numbers. This does obviously combo nicely with Eureka again, because obviously you can use Eureka's Soul Blast 1 to bounce this back to hand again, and then place down Notoria again next turn to do another top 3 filter. And the fact that she's got no cost behind this top 3 filter makes her even better for the deck. And the other card to quickly discuss is the grade 1. And this is Takitsu. And she's got the skill of, when she is placed on rearguard circle, if you've got a grade 3 or higher Vanguard with Luticia, you can counterblast 1 to choose a cursed play from your drop zone and add it to your hand. So obviously this combos off really nicely with the grade 2 that we've got here that can Soul Blast to gain 10,000 power. So obviously you can place this down, grab your grade 1 non-blitz order back to your hand again, place it down again, Soul Charge, call another unit out your soul. Becomes really nice, because if you notice from the deck, we don't really counterblast that much. So having an extra little bit of counterblast in this to get more units on the board and the power gain does add up really nicely. All in all, Luticia is a very interesting deck to play around with, and I really do feel this is going to hold up quite nicely in the meta. Moving on next, we are going to move on to Fortia. So as a quick reminder for those that don't remember Fortia from set 2, Fortia does have the skill of end of the battle, this unit attacks your opponent's Vanguard. If all your units are in the friend state, which is a skill gained on certain units to make the units in those columns friend state, you can counterblast 1, discard a card, restand this card. This gains power plus 5,000, but drive -1. So obviously, like Luticia, it's a restanding Vanguard, but this one doesn't actually become a +/-0, but it does have an easier cost to fulfill for her restand. Drive -1 does hurt slightly, but it does add up in the end for the fact, obviously, there is so much the Friends package that does give you draw ones anyway. But moving on to the new cards, we've got 2 new cards to really support the deck. First one being High Tension Roxella. Now, High Tension Roxella's obviously got the Friend skill herself, which is really solid. But her main part that she becomes interesting is the fact of her second skill, which is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have 3 or more other friends, this unit gets 5,000 power to the end of that battle. And then if you've got 5 or more friends, you can then choose a unit that's not one of your rearguards with a friend ability that's not in this column, and then return it to your hand. So obviously this is really nice. In fact, obviously you can use this now in Fortia to bounce your Melties, which is really good plays. Obviously it does require you to have 5 other friends, but when you've got Roxella, who has the friends ability, Fortia, who has the friends ability, and Melty, who has the friend ability, you will have a full field of friends. Plus, you again, like with how we did with Luticia, you can have Yuika in this column. Although I think I cut Yuika from my list personally due to lack of space. But if you wanted to, you can have Yuika in this column and use Yuika to bounce Roxella. But you can also combo it off further by, if you're bouncing the Melty on the other side, we've still got the grade 1 Ducala from the set 2. But obviously when you put the Melty back down in her column again, Ducala will also let you draw a card. So you do get quite a nice little bit of draw power off this card, which is really interesting. But then you're thinking to yourself, well, that's more counterblast spam. What do we have to counteract that? And that's where the other card comes in, Favour to you, Radia. Now Radia's got the skill of Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit boosts a grade 3 or higher Vanguard with Fortia in its card name, you can Soul Blast 2, and your Vanguard will get the skill of, when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, countercharge 1. Obviously it's till the end of turn, so obviously with Fortia being a restanding Vanguard, both your Vanguard swings now have the on-hit countercharge 1. Which is really good, because obviously the countercharge 1 pays for Fortia's cost. It refunds your Melty. There's so much it can do. Soul Blast 2 does become heavy, which is why I did end up cutting the Yuikas in the end. But Yuika's another option you can actually do. I am going to quickly pop up on the screen now my list for this deck. And obviously you can see we've still got the Eileen in here because it's still really good. We've got the grade 2 that gains 2k for each of your friend state cards. still really big numbers, and you can still bounce this off of Roxella, because it does have to have the friends ability, so you do have to be careful with what you can and can't bounce. Normally it's going to be your grade 2. We did cut back on the grade 3 that bounced herself back to hand now to obviously fund the Roxellas. And it really helps out nicely, because obviously that gave the extra space that we've taken out 4 grade 3s to add in 4 extra cards with shield value, which in the end did add up quite nicely. All in all, very interesting, and can't wait to see how Fortia does hold up now she's got her new bits of support. But then we are going to move on to our final list in the forms of Hazeritt. Now, the first card up is Iridescent Palette Hazelitt. That's a bloody mouthful. And she's got two skills. Oh no, she's got 1 skill, sorry, and which gives a skill. And her skill is Act Vanguard Circle once a turn. Counterblast 1. Choose up to 5 of your normal unit of rear guards, and during that turn they get 2,000 power, which on its own wouldn't be much. But they also gain the additional skill of those cards gain the skill of Auto Rear Guard Circle. Enter the battle, then when this unit attacked a Vanguard, draw a card and put this unit onto the bottom of your deck. Then, if you chose 3 units to gain this power gainer skill, Hazeritt herself gains 10,000 power. So Hazeritt, as you can tell from this, is all about attacking with all your units, tucking them back to deck, and then drawing to replace them. So you're getting a ±0 out of it, which is really interesting. But then you're going to be thinking, well, what's the actual benefit from this? Well, then when you combine it with seven coloured bubbles Sherin, who's got the skill of when this unit boosts a rear guard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Hazeritt in its card name, this unit gets 5,000 power at the end of that battle. And then at the end of that battle, you can Soul Blast 1, choose one of your rear guards, back row centre rear guards, and move it to the front row rear guard circle where there is an empty circle. So this then allows a 4th attack to the deck, which is really interesting. So you're returning 3 back to deck to draw 3, and you're leaving yourself at 2, which is very good for the Gravidia matchup. You're leaving yourself in no front row, which is good for the Balsagra matchup. It's quite an interesting meta deck. But then you're combining this on top with Adorable Shooter Clanfell, who's got the skill of when she's placed on rearguard circle from your hand, if you're a Vanguard with Hazeritt in its card name, you can put a grade 2 or less card from your hand into your soul, to then look at the top of 7 cards of your deck, choose up to a grade 3 with power of 12,000 or less, a grade 2 with 9,000 power or less, or a grade 1 with 7,000 power or less, and call it a rearguard circle. And then if you didn't call a card, you can then draw a card. So she generates a card that might not be useful at the time if you hand it to your soul, which then pays for Sherin's cost, which is really good. And then you're then calling a card from deck to field, so you're deck compressing. Plus you're then shuffling your deck as well at the same time to get any of your key units that you put back to deck last turn back so you can actually draw into them again, which does help out really nicely. But you're then more like thinking to yourself, well, that number seems weird, because obviously you're searching for lower powered numbers. But then Hazelitt has most of her support actually being the lower base numbers. It's outside of Clanfell. So the 2k power that Hazeritt gives actually brings them back up to normal power levels. So it doesn't actually hurt in the long run, is the honest response. Going to bring up an example list over here. And as you can see here, we've gone for a few of the older set 1 cards, which obviously people complained about being odd base powers, that we can actually now utilise within the deck. So obviously we have got Annalise, the grade 3 ghost. And she's 12k base, which is obviously something that Clanfell can search. But the key part to note is, the reason I'm including this in the deck is the fact of Hazeritt's draw isn't tied to the card having to go back to deck. So with Annalise going to Soul to give something 5,000 power, doesn't remove the fact of you actually get the draw out of it. So you'll turn it by using cards like this. We've got Eureka as well, stuff that removes it off the field naturally, turns the Hazeritt plus -0 into an actual +1, because you're getting a free draw out of it. Plus, you can use Eureka to bounce a Clanfell back to your hand again, to then place the Clanfell back down again next turn, to then get another search off, and you can keep doing that every turn. So it does make some extra pluses. The last card I have included here is the Myoka Raj Karina. And this one can actually be this, or there's grade 2 in the set that's on here, put it into the bottom deck, draw a card. It's also 8k base, grade 2, so it does come down to player preference. But this one that I've actually gone for this list is during your battle phase, when you have a rear guard placed on the bottom of your deck, if you have a Vanguard with Hazeritt in its card name, this unit gets 5,000 power at the end of turn. So this not being once per turn means you can easily gain 10k power off her from having 2 units go to the bottom of the deck, and then she's moved to the front row, plus her 2k power from the Hazeritt, makes her 18k, 28k on Persona Rod. But this does obviously become less useful if you do focus heavily on using Eureka to bounce stuff back to your hand and Annalise going to Soul. So if you're doing more of that style, you'd then want to focus more on the grade 2 8k that gains 10. You can Soul Blast 1 to gain 10k when something's placed on the bottom of your deck. And then on hit, put this to the bottom deck, draw a card, and countercharge 1. So it does come down to player preference. Obviously, the countercharge isn't too necessary in this deck, because our only counterblast outlets is Hazeritt herself, and for what I've actually gone for in Setzilla. Now, the reason I've gone for Setzilla over Melty in this list is the fact that Setzilla can actually be searched. Yes, she's got to be placed from hand for her counterblast 1 draw, but you can still search her off of Clanfell, and then use a Eureka to bounce the Setzilla back to hand, so then play the Setzilla back down again. And it just being a 9k base overall doesn't actually hurt in this deck, because you're still gaining the 2k from Hazeritt to put her to an 11k. All in all, Hazeritt's a very fun deck, all about cycling and protection, but I feel it's going to be a deck that shows up more depending on what the current meta is. So that's it for these 3 decks. I will be back next week for the final one of the 3 lots, which will be Kairi, Michu, and I think the last one is Panda Girl. I can't remember her name. Medial, that's it. So Medial, Kairi, and Michu next week. And then after that, we'll then start looking at some more. I'm going to try and get some more of the set 7 games in, because obviously they released 6, Lyrical 3 and 7 so close together that it's just swamped me. I am also planning on getting back to 4 videos next week. We have got the strategy presentation to cover next week as well, because I'm waiting for, as you'll see this video, today's news from the English side, so I can give proper bit of information on both sides and see how it goes. But that is going to be it for this video. If you haven't done so already, please do like, comment, subscribe. It very much does help the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye!